Hello students, now in the series of general anatomy lectures, now we begin with the nervous system. So this is the first lecture on the nervous system, and there will be three other lectures also on the nervous system. This first lecture on nervous system is just a kind of introductory lecture for the nervous system. But here I will tell you mostly about the nervous tissue. That means your brain is an spinal cord or nervous system is made up of the neurons, the neuroglial cells and the blood vessels. Okay, so I will talk about the neurons and neuroglial cells, okay, and the blood vessels. I will not talk to in this lecture about the blood vessels, but definitely I will talk about the two component of the nervous tissue, that is the neurons and the neuroglial cells. Okay, so we come to the second slide where we will learn about the neurons. Now, if we see the structure of the nervous system, we will see that this nervous system is made up of a complex and highly organized network of billions of neurons and neuroglia. So how many neurons are there? Billions of neurons and neuroglia are there in our nervous system. Okay. Now, these two types of cell, which two types of cell? One is the neurons and another is neuroglia. Neuroglia, okay? These two types of cells are associated with the blood vessel. As I said that the nervous tissue consists of neurons, neuroglia and the blood vessel, which compose our brain and spinal cord, okay? Now, neuroglia are smaller than the neurons. Neuroglia are smaller. They are less than about 15 to 20 micron. Okay. But a neuron is always around 30 micron, but it may be up to 120 micron, but an average size of neuron is around 30 to 40 microns. And the number of neuroglia is 5 to 10 times more than neurons. 5 to 10 times. Just remember this that neurons are less as compared to neuroglia, and they are much less. 5 to 10 times less than that of the population of neuroglia. Okay. Neuron is a structural and functional unit of nervous system that you must have read already about and know that neurons are the nerve cells. They are the functional and structural unit of nervous system. That means whatsoever function and the functions are performed in our nervous system, that is in brain and spinal cord, this is due to the activity of the neurons or the nerve cells. Okay, nerve cells. Now, for example, the stimulation of the neurons leads to the contraction of the muscle. Okay, it may lead to the glandular secretion. The secretion of the gland is because now impulses come to the gland. You can sense, okay, the pain, the touch, the temperature. You can see these are extroceptive sensation, means coming from the external environment. Okay, pain, touch and temperature which you can sense from your skin. Okay, atmospheric temperature, whether it is cold or heat outside, that is also sensed by the neurons. Okay, nervous system as such. Okay, then the fact, I mean, say very important function of the human brain is thinking. Now we have the high capability of thinking or analysis of any problem. Okay, and that thinking is also I mean to say function of the neurons. Okay, it is neurons. Then we can store the past experiences, okay, past events of our life into our brain. And where are they stored? This is in the form of the memory. It is stored in our neurons itself, right? Now, as far as neuroglia are concerned, these were the function of the neurons. But if the neuroglia cells, they are there, they are not doing anything of the above, okay? They cannot generate an impulse, okay, for secretion, for contraction of muscle, or they cannot store the memory like, okay, which neuron can do it, okay. Now neuroglia cells, they only support the neuron. They support how they support the physical support, because they surround the neurons. They are present everywhere around the neurons, and then they nourish the neuron. Okay, nourish means they bring the food for the neurons and they protect them. Okay, that means they form an insulation around the neurons. Okay, the neuroglia cell. So in one way, the neuroglia cells, they act as similar to the connective tissue in the rest of the body. They are, the neuroglia cells are performing. They are, I mean, say, protecting our very valuable new cells, that is the neuron cells. Okay, right. So this was just an introduction of the nerve cells, which are called as neurons, and of the neuroglia. Further, we will read about the neurons and neuroglia. Okay, let's come to the neurons first. Neurons are the nerve cells. Okay, you can see this is a diagram where only one of the neuron is shown, and this neuron, where the centrally place is nucleus, and then it is having many process coming out, that is the dendrite, and one of the process is quite long, which is in this diagram is shown to be uh, innervating the skeletal muscle fibers. So this long process, which is going to the target cell, it may be a gland, it may be, I mean to say, a blood vessel, it may be a skeletal muscle fiber. Okay, this is called as axon. So this long process is axon, and this short process, multiple, they are called as dendrite. Okay, and within the cytoplasm of this neuron, this dotted structure, which are blue in color, they are the nasal granule. They are the nasal granule. Okay, so this is just a short structure of a neuron, which is, since it is supplying to the muscle fibers, it is called as motor neuron. Okay, it is called as motor neuron. Now, neurons are highly specialized cells, okay? They are highly special. Any other cells of the body, you take muscle tissue, cartilage, okay, connective tissue, you take epithelial tissues or cells, it is the much more highly specialized, okay, cell, which has the property to generate electric impulse. That means this cell, which is called as neuron or nerve cell, is capable to generate the electric impulse, and not only to generate the electric impulse, it also conduct this impulse from one place to another. Okay, distant places, as in the axon. Okay, it is going to many centimeters, okay, away from its body, cell body, or it may go to the many feet away. Okay, for example, a neuron situated in our spinal cord, okay, is sending the axon to the toes muscle of the sole, okay, which is far away, okay, far away from the spinal cord. A neuron consists of cell body and two type of process. I have shown you axon and dendrite. These are dendrites, multiple, and only one axon from each cell. Okay. Now the cytoplasm contain nasal granules, which I have shown you. These dotted structures, bluish in color. Okay, they are nasal granules. Okay, and there is a nucleus which is centrally placed, and it is euchromatic nucleus. Euchromatic nucleus means at many other places the nucleus is darkly stained because it contains the DNA and RNA. Okay, chromosomes. Okay, chromosomes also. But here, in case of the nerve cells, a nucleus will look pale, okay, or rather unstained or lightly stained, and that nucleus is called as euchromatic nucleus or open phase nucleus. And why a nucleus in the nerve cell is lightly stained, okay, euchromatic or open phase? The reason is that the neuron or nerve cells, they are constantly producing protein, in the form of the neurotransmitter. And to produce the lot of neurotransmitters, which are chemicals, okay, protein, the I mean to say their I mean to say genes are quite active because they are producing messenger RNA, which messenger RNA is coming to that of the cytoplasm, where it gets attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum uh, through the ribosome. I mean, say ribosomes are also arranged on this messenger RNA, okay, which is attached on outer surface of this nasal granules, which are nothing but the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So they are involved in a nucleus is highly active, which is involved in the synthesis of the neurotransmitter, producing the messenger, and that's why its DNA is not tightly coiled, okay, it is mostly open up, and because it is open up means uh, I mean say untwisted, okay, the double helix of DNA is untwisted, okay, I mean say not tightly coiled, not untwisted, and not tightly coiled, so that they stand lightly, they stand. That is the reason why the these nuclei of the neurons are the euchromatic. Now these neurons have unidirectional flow of impulses. Another character of this neuron is that it receives the impulse from other neurons, okay, through its dendrites, okay, or directly from cell body or this cell membrane, and then this impulse which are generated or which were received by other neurons, they are transmitted through axon to its terminal end. It will never happen that the impulse is passing from axon to the cell. It is always from cell towards the axon. So there is a unidirectional flow of the neurons. Okay, and neurons are three types. Okay, functionally, if we classify the neurons, they are three types. The classification as per the structure may be depending on the size of neurons, depending on the shape of the neurons, multipolar, unipolar, pseudo-unipolar, like that, okay, or fusiform. So many types of shapes are there, which we will learn in great detail in histology, okay. Here since we are in the general anatomy series of lectures, we are talking about the general aspect of our nervous tissue, okay, or nervous system too. Neurons are three types, okay, sensory, motor, and interneuron based on their function. Hmm? They are sensory, motor, and interneurons. Now I'm moving to the next slide to tell you about the detail about sensory, motor, and interneurons. Okay, the first type of neuron is sensory neuron here, and these neurons carry sensation to brain and spinal cord. From where? From where they are bringing this sensation? The sensation are coming mostly from our skin, which is surrounded by the external atmosphere. Okay, so most of the sensation like pain, touch, temperature, okay, cold or heat, okay, this comes from our skin, and these are brought by the sensory neuron. See this blue color thing? This is sensory neuron, which has two process. It is called as the where my pointer is moving, called as peripheral process, which is carrying the sensation. Here is a pinprick and the pain is felt. So this sensation of pain is brought by this fiber, and these fibers, which are called as the peripheral fibers, they mimic or they are similar to the dendrites, okay, of a neuron, which I have shown you in the previous slide. Okay, now then the another process will arise from this neuron, which is sensory neuron outside the spinal cord in the dorsal root ganglion. These fibers, they will carry this sensation to another neuron located inside the spinal cord, and this fiber, which is bringing this sensation from cell body of the sensory neuron to the second neuron in the spinal cord, is the central process. So there are two processes here, peripheral and central, which is just nothing similar to that of the dendrites and axons, okay, and impulses are just going in one direction only. So this is the example of sensory neuron, okay, and their function is to carry the sensation to the brain and to the spinal cord. That this is one example which is lying outside. There are plenty of the sensory neuron present in the spinal cord and in the brain, okay, that you will learn. Okay, don't get confused, just this is the simplest way, the simplest description of sensory neurons, interneurons and motor neurons, okay. Now we come to the second kind of the neurons. Functionally, it is called as interneurons. Why they are called interneurons? Because sometimes they are interposed or placed between a sensory and a motor neuron. Okay, it's not always necessary that they will be between the two, sensory and motor always. It may be between any two neurons that are called as interneuron, and their function is to process the sensory. So the pinprick was made here, so the sensation of pain has come through this neuron. This will reach to the interneuron, which is located inside the spinal cord, and this act as a analyzer, okay. It will process the impulse, okay, what kind of sensation, from where, what is its severity, it is just a very painful or less painful, all this will be interpreted by these interneurons, okay. Hmm. And then this will also take an appropriate decision, okay, not only it will realize, okay, analyze the information or sensation which has come, but it will also order the its decision, okay, after analysis on what decision it has come, okay, and so that the body will act accordingly, okay, body will act accordingly. So this is are the very important function of the interneurons which are posed here in the spinal cord, placed in the spine. There are many in the brain, okay. Now the third kind of the neuron, functional neuron, is the motor neuron, and this is here also shown in the spinal cord. This neuron is responsible for the motor function and called as the motor. What is motor function? Motor function means when it will stimulated, when interneuron will give it its order or stimulate this neuron, or the impulse is coming from brain directly from higher center to this neuron will get excited, it will generate an impulse, and this impulse will travel through its long axon here, and then this is as supplying to the muscle, this muscle will lead to the contraction, okay. So some function has taken place, okay. Motor means one which moves, and here what will move, okay, here the muscle will contract, that is the movement, okay, where the movement is taking place. So muscle is moving, okay, by contraction, and muscle is attached to bone, so the bone will move at a joint. So the action of flexion, extension, any other action thus will takes place because of the this motor neuron which is located here, okay. So this is three different types, these are three different types of the neuron: sensory neuron, interneurons, and this is the very simplest way of describing, okay, uh, the constituent part of a nervous tissue, that is neurons. We are on the first part, neurons. Second will be interneurons, I mean say not interneurons, second will be neuroglia, okay. We will then learn about the neuroglia, right. Moving to the next slide. Then second type of the cells which are plenty, that means 5 to 10 times more than the neurons which are present. Neuron itself, they are in billions, okay, they are billions in our nervous system, central nervous system. And what is central nervous system? I have just uttered this word. Central nervous system means brain and the spinal cord, okay, which are located in midline. Brain is in our skull, okay, and spinal cord is in our vertebral column, in the canal, vertebral canal. And then the many nerves comes out from brain which are called as cranial nerve. They are 12 pairs, 12 on right side and 12 on left side. And similarly 31 nerves, they come out from the spinal cord, 31 on right side and 31 on the, they are called as spinal. These cranial and spinal nerve, they are called as peripheral. So now you know what is central nervous system and what is the peripheral, because I am referring here the central nervous system. So I have explained you here. Okay, now these neuroglia cells, okay, they cannot be excited. Okay, as I said that when a motor neuron is excited by an interneuron, it will generate an impulse to contract the muscle. This is not the case with the neuroglial cells. Okay, they cannot be, because they are not neuron, they are not the nerve cell, they are just supporting cell like a connective tissue and other part of the body, and they cannot conduct the impulse since they are not generating. So how can they conduct the impulse? They will not conduct the impulse. They only nourish, okay, provide food to the neuron and provide the support to the neuron and insulate these neurons. Insulate means they protect by forming a layer all around. Similar to that, okay, when a electric wire you are seeing is made up of metal, copper or any other metal, and then it is covered by plastic coat, so that the electric wire is from outside is well protected by the coating, okay, that is insulated by plastic, so that the two naked wires should not come in contact with each other. Otherwise the current passing through this wire will be short circuited. Okay, it will be short circuit. So they only nourish, support and insulate the new insulation. Now you understand what is insulation with the example of the electric wires. Okay, now the neuroglia of central nervous system, that is central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, are as under. So these are the four different type of the neuroglial cells are present in the central, mean brain and spinal cord. That means the neuroglial cell of peripheral nervous system, that means the cranial nerves and the spinal nerve, which are taking origin from brain and spinal cord respectively, they are different, they are not these four. Okay, so they are present only in the brain and spinal cord. First kind of the neuroglia cell is oligodendroglia. Oligodendroglia, these, they form a sheath insulation. As I said that a naked electric wire is covered by the plastic sheath. Okay, so this axons of the nerves and dendrites are the peripheral process of sensory fibers. They are covered by a myelin sheath. Okay, so that the impulse which is passing through these fibers, axons or dendrite, should not get short circuited by other naked fiber if it is present. Okay, so this form a sheath around the axons or dendrites, right? So in the central nervous system, and it means all those fibers which are running in the brain and the spinal cord, which are axon or dendrite, they are covered by the myelin sheath formed by the oligodendroglia. It is an important function of oligodendroglia. Then second type of neuroglia is the astrocytes. This is the astrocyte, and these astrocytes, they are of two types, the protoplasmic astrocyte and fibrous astro. If there is a diagram in next slide, I will show you this diagram of astrocyte. And why they are called as astrocyte? Because they are star shaped. That's why they are called as astrocytes. They form BBB. BB means the blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier. There is a barrier between the blood which is circulating into the capillaries, arterioles, venules inside the brain, and that between the neurons, okay, nervous tissue. So this astrocyte, they form a barrier so that the brain should not directly come in contact with the blood, okay, which is flowing inside the, I mean to say, brain or spinal cord. Otherwise poisonous substance may come in contact with the neurons, okay, or toxic substance may come in contact. So there is always a barrier. Now, as we have learned in general function of the neuroglia, that they provide the nourishment and support. Okay. Now, ependyma. Ependyma is lining of ventricles, and ventricles are nothing but the large cavities within the brain, okay? And these cavities are filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. So these cavities are lined by a third kind of the neuroglia called as ependyma. Okay, it is a simple columnar epithelium, ciliated epithelium. That is the correct, I would say, structure of the ependyma. So ependyma is nothing but a simple ciliated columnar epithelium. Okay, and this is not only present in the ventricle, that means lining, but it is lining to the central canal of the spinal cord. In that one diagram, I have shown you a spinal cord, and in the center there was a minute canal called as the central canal. Since I cannot go back to the slide, okay, I am not showing you. Now the fourth kind of the neuroglia is the microglia, and these microglia, they are phagocytic cells. That means they are present in the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and they are eating the any foreign body, virus, bacteria, debris, uh, dead neuroglia cells, dead fibers, that means axon or dendrites and the dead neurons. They will eat away, okay, and will clean the brain tissue, okay, clean. So their function is phagocytic in nature, okay, they are phagocytic in nature. So these were the neuroglial cells of the central nervous system, means brain and spinal cord. Now I move to the last slide where neuroglia cells of the peripheral nervous systems are described. Now see, these are the neuroglia of the peripheral nervous system, means brain, not present in brain and spinal cord, but outside that, okay, with the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves and any collection of the ganglia there, that is nerve cell connection outside the central nervous system or the peripheral nervous system. Now these are of two different types, okay, there were four here, but here in peripheral nervous system they are two. Swan cell, you must have heard about swan cells, okay. These swan cells, they form the myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system. And what was the cell which was forming the similar myelin sheath in the brain and spinal cord? Was the oligodendria. It was. Here it is swan cell. That means swan cell cannot go inside the CNS, and oligodendria cannot come outside the CNS, okay, to form this. They are separate, okay, separate cell at the in central nervous system and separate cell in peripheral nervous system, which will form the myelin sheath. Now then, second type of the cell which is present in peripheral nervous system, which is neuroglia, it is called as satellite cells. Okay, here is a diagram of the satellite cells. See this small cell surrounding to a large neuron. This is a large neuron which is of the dorsal root ganglia, which I have already shown you, okay, which has a peripheral process and a central process, pseudo-unipolar it is. And surrounding to this cell, there are so many small cells which is completely insulating the surface. This is just in a cross section. Imagine a rounded cell, I mean say satellite, I mean say this dorsal root ganglion cell, okay, and it will be surrounded all around, okay, it is completely surrounding. So a ball completely surrounding by the neuroglial cells, so which forms an insulation around this neuroglia cell. And these cells which are forming an insulation, okay, are arranged all around these neurons. These neurons, I mean say these neuroglial cells are called as satellite cells. So these are so many satellite cells surrounding to a single neuron or nerve cell. Okay, nerve cell. Let us see other neuroglia cell. They are small, as I told you, and this is a protoplasmic astrocyte. See, star-shaped structure. This is a fibrous astrocyte, again a star-shaped structure. But here the process, they are fibrous, they are very thin. Here the process which are arising from the cell body, they are quite thick. So it is called as protoplasmic astrocyte, and this is called as the fibrous astrocyte. And I said that they form the blood-brain barrier. Okay? Blood-brain barrier. So they send their food process on the surface of the blood vessels. Okay, this is a microglia, again multipolar. Okay, many process, and it is a phagocytic cell. It is a phagocytic cell. This completes a brief description of the nervous tissue. Okay, and nervous tissue, I said, consists of three components. One is nerve cell or neurons, second is the neuroglia, and third is the blood vessel. Okay, so we are not going to blood vessels of general anatomy, we have already covered. This was just a very simple lecture to introduce you the nervous tissue, especially the neurons and neuroglia. Neurons and neuroglia. This completes the lecture. Thank you.